Just putting the finishing touches on the garage for our youngest daughter's grad party today. So I was just thinking, if you got small kids, enjoy every minute of it, because like that, they're 18 and ready to fly the coop. But that got me thinking, I've never really told the story of Dante's first snow track in Buck last winter, or it was winter, November 29th, second to last day of Michigan gun season. I had found this buck, I found the track, which I knew was a decent sized buck, about a month before that, crossing a road on National Forest. And, when it was just early rut, when they're seeking, I knew that a big deer like that crosses the road in a spot. Typically, it's going to happen, there quite often when they're making their loops. So we were down home on Thanksgiving, and the forecast was for 4 or 5 inches of fresh snow and really windy conditions the next day. I said, dude, let's go. We got to go up to camp and go tracking in the morning. So we took off, went up to camp. Next morning, get up, go right down to that, I don't know, it's probably south of the camp, like 4 or 5 miles. And sure as heck, that buck track was crossing the road right there. And there's so few deer around there because the wolves are so bad down in that area. That's real easy to keep tabs on one track. So I said, hey, let's go down, spend another hour circling these blocks and see if, we don't see them coming way out the other end, even though it was miles across, or we find a bigger one. So we went and did that. Nothing. In fact, I'm not even sure we saw another track, but we come back to that one, and by that point, it was still snowing, but this track was 3/4 snowed in, but we knew it was relatively fresh. So we take off on it, and I said immediately, it's like a mile, I think mile and a half to one section of private land. It was 120 acres, it was 3/4 of a mile long, north to south, way back in there. And I'm like, well, pretty sure that this buck is going right for that private land, and we are going to lose the track on the private land. I said, but odds are it's the second week of deer season. Guy that's hunting there's got a bait pile. Nothing against bait piles, but every deer around her knows he's there. So this buck has been in there before it got light and out of there. I said, we'll just circle that whole thing if we have to and pick up his track and just keep on it going. Sure as heck, we get into that edge of that private property, and he's going in there. It's like, all right, let's just go north now. And we were close to the south end, so it was a good half a mile or more. We go north, and sure as heck, here comes that track out of there. And it was fresh at that point, a lot fresher. So we get on it. Another, I don't know, maybe 3/4 mile or so. We come over this ridge. Way through this valley, there's another ridge, good 150 yards or so away. And it had been logged, select cut, so there's a lot of young growth in it. And this buck was in there. He must have been dogging a doe and lost it or whatever, because it seemed like he was just looking for the sign, moving around a lot. And then Dante was trying to get on him, and he wears glasses. We just got him contacts yesterday for this reason. But his glasses, when we stopped, because we had hoofing it so much, sweated up, glasses were steaming up. He was taking them off and trying to hang them on a tree. They dropped in the snow, and he was almost stepped on them. I just reached down to grab it. All the while I was like, dude, get on this buck before he takes off. Because it's moving. I mean, it's just dogging around in there. And he's on the tree trying to get the shot. Obviously, his glasses off. He wouldn't be able to see decent enough that far away, but through a scope, obviously, you can see the magnification. So it stopped in one spot. Boom, he shot, deer took off. Have no idea what, if he hit it at whatever. So we make our way down there, and sure as heck, right where we're standing, there's blood. And we get on its track, and we got on his track, and and it just kept going on and on and on for, oh geez. Well, and that's the beauty about following these deer. You learn so much, and it makes you really rethink your setups when you sit in stands, because the same buck that I said went through this private property and got out of before it got dark or light, he went towards that private land. So now it's a 3/4 of a mile long to the south, right? He towards the north end of it, he hit, and then he paralleled. He just like took a 90 and ran down all the way to the side of that land and then skirted off the bottom on the south. So he knew not to go in there when it was light out. It's just amazing, these animals, what they'll learn. But anyway, we followed that deer. It was 7 miles by the time we caught up to him. And he had went through a river. We got to the edge of the river, and you could see he crossed, obviously. So we always carry like contractor bags in our backpacks, so you can put one on each leg and just like use a little strap or whatever around the top, and then walk through rivers, take them off, throw them in your pack, and you're good to go. You're not going to get wet. Well, I put them on and walked in just a couple of steps in that river, and it was already well over my knees. I'm like, well, that ain't happening. So we had to walk way down the river, find a beaver pond or beaver dam, walk across the beaver dam, and come all the way back down the river and jump the deer. It was right off the side of the river. That thing had to have been laying in the top watching us, but it was so tired by this point, and it had lost a lot of blood. So we get back on the track, and he goes down to the river again, another 1/4 mile up. And we get to the edge of the river, the high banks, all them big clumpy stuff that like in the river bottom, it's wide open. I don't know, it's probably a good 100 yards or so wide. It's like a marsh. So you could see really good across it. So when we got to the edge of the river, you couldn't see the track coming out the other side. And we looked down or up the river, down the river, and you couldn't see nothing. Like, man, did that thing, because they'll do is they'll backtrack, and then they'll jump off their track and keep going the other direction. So we did, we turned around, backtracked quite a ways, nothing. I'm like, man, that deer got in that river. So we get down to the edge of the river, we're standing there, in the same spot where it went into the river, and looking around, it's like, man, for the life of me, where did he go? It's like he just up and vanished, grew wings and flew away. The river was froze up except for a spot in the middle, maybe this wide, all the way up the river. So Dante noticed that. He said, hey, isn't that like a piece of grass, like up from the bottom of the river, that grass growth, laying on top of the ice? And I'm like, yeah, that is. And I said, it looks like there's a little water pushed up on the edge of the ice. It was a little froze up because it was cold. It was really cold and windy. So like, man, that deer got in the middle of that river and walked up the river. I said, you walk up in front of me, because I tell you what, by this point, I was starting to get beat. I said, you walk up and I'll, come behind you and go to that next beaver dam you can see way up there and see if he crossed there. He gets up there, see, yup, tracks going across. Or coming up out of the river onto the beaver dam and then out the other side. So I get up there and I said, dude, give me the gun. I said, if it comes back out, it likes this river. It evaded us twice now. You get on the track and it's going to jump probably and come back down the river and it's nice wide open. I'm going to end this because it's almost dark and we're 4 miles from the truck with zero cell service. So nobody knew where we were at. I mean, it was all up to us to get this deer out of there, and like it had been a long day already. So he gave me a gun and just starts walking into the brush. His jacket wasn't even out of sight yet, and it's really thick tag-allers and balsams. And he turns around, comes back. I'm thinking, Jesus, you got to follow him further than that. He said, it's dead. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, it's dead. It's laying here. So we get in there, and it wasn't. It was just barely breathing yet. And then I gave him the gun, and he finished it off. And then I said, dude, I started getting cold because I sweat really bad to begin with. And so and it was snowing, and we were completely soaked right through. I said, you start a fire. I'm going to field dress this deer. I said, because we got to dry some gloves out and get a little heat because I'm starting to shiver, like hypothermia shiver. I said, as soon as we get this done, we'll start pulling it. We're going to, sweat up. And I said, we got a 4-mile walk back to the truck. So we'll be plenty warm by the time we get back to the truck. We'll be fine. So we started a fire, and I dressed the deer out, and then we warmed up a little bit by the fire, and then grabbed them and took off. And in another video, you see me this spring, early summer, I walked back in there because I lost my damn knife. And I think I lost it there because I was just so cold and wasn't, just hurry, wasn't thinking. But I did not find it. So I don't know for sure if it fell out of my pack. I didn't put it in there decent on the way out when we were dragging or what. But and then we got out to we drugged this thing about 3/4 of a mile out to the edge of an old Forest Service road. And there was 0 truck tracks on there from all day long. There's just nobody there, So it's like, well, we're going to have to walk back to the truck 4 miles. I said, we can cut off probably almost a mile if we go cross country through the woods. And we each had a little headlamp, of course, but we were both retired, and we came from that way in the swamps and ridges and crap we went through. We both looked at each other and said, I don't want to walk through that stuff at night. It's going to be so much hotter. I said, let's just take this old Forest Service road, and that'll get us back to the truck. So we got back to the truck, and it was, I don't know, a couple, 2-3 hours after dark by the time we got over there. And we drove back all the way around and to that where we pulled the deer up to the Forest Service road, and went in there, grabbed it and yanked it out and threw it in the truck, and went back to the camp and changed clothes immediately. And then went down to Hoppy's bar in Kenton to weigh it. And it was a 10-pointer. And it was only, it was the damn bones were out, or the spine was almost sticking out of it. It was so ran down. It was only like 150 some pounds. But it was a nice buck regardless. So, yeah, the boy is definitely hooked on tracking, which is great because I love to do it as well. So I just thought I'd throw that story out there because there's a lot of guys that love to track. And actually, we'd like to find another guy or two up in the Yup or even northern Wisconsin, because we do it up there as well, that has the same similar interest, because it's hard to find guys that want to hunt that way. And when you get into spots that are miles from the truck late at night, would be nice to have other guys that, doing what you're doing in your group, that you could send you obviously couldn't send a text, but I've been thinking about getting inReaches. So at least no matter what, you can send a text out to somebody and their coordinates, whatnot, and so they can come and find you and get you and save you a lot of hassle. Or, God forbid, something, you twist an ankle or break a leg or whatever the case may be, they can come and get you, help you out. But anyway, that's, I think that's about it for that story. And have a good weekend, and talk to you soon.